this scenario also plays out because you keep wanting to say, wait a minute, this is crazy. Can't someone stop it from happening? And the tragic, sad answer is that no one didn't.
Oh my God. This show is so good.
Oh, thank you.
Looked it immediately, and it's so powerful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's great to hear.
Good news.
Yeah, I never get tired of hearing that.
My first question is actually for both of you. The cast in this is phenomenal, but Uzo Aduba and Clark Gregg really stand out to me. What did they each bring to their performances that kind of brought it beyond what was first written on the page?
Well, thank you for noticing that. I think we were very, very careful about who we put in the show, obviously, because authenticity is so important, and some of the parts are pretty challenging. Uzo's, I think, one of the best actresses of her generation. I mean, she's phenomenal. And she had an incredibly important part because she was sort of our audience's window in to this story. She's, loosely based on a number of people, including Barry, who noticed early on that something was wrong here. Before OxyContin became the story it became, it relied on people like Barry going, wait, something's off here. She had to play not only a naive who becomes an expert, but also the stakes of the show are very much the justice that she seeks, and it's a bit of a spoiler alert, fails to find. And so that was essential. Clark is an old friend of mine and a phenomenal actor, and we knew that he would really embrace the part of playing Arthur Sackler, a guy who was sort of an anachronism and a shameless marketer, which is why the epidemic happened, because of the influence of Arthur. So, no, we really, I think, lucked out with our cast.
Barry, what was it like to see this brought to life in this Netflix show? And why was it important to shift perspectives throughout, not just following Edie's story, but seeing the executives and people that are using OxyContin and the drug reps?
Well, I wrote this book in 2003. So it's been this, for me, an incredible journey, 2-decade-long journey from the story I wrote to the show that's now coming out. And in the book, I'm not in the book. There is an investigative character. There are these attorneys that are investigating. But the book really revolves around the marketing of OxyContin, the Sacklers, the character of Arthur Sackler, and how his mad genius affected what would become the marketing scheme used to promote OxyContin, about the failures of everyone who was around, public health officials, professional medical organizations, regulators, from stopping this tragedy from happening. And I think in the show, this scenario also plays out because you keep wanting to say, wait a minute, this is crazy. Can't someone stop it from happening? And the tragic, sad answer is that no one didn't.
Yeah, I was shocked by just the systemic failure and corruption that led to all of this. That was one of the most shocking parts of this for me.
It was there in spades, yes.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it, but I was like, wow, great, awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the research process of who you spoke with? Because I have addiction in my family, and seeing how that spirals for people felt so real.
Unfortunately, there are no shortage of experts. I mean, it's one of the great tragedies of this story is that everyone, yourself included, everyone knows someone. Everyone's lost somebody. And so we didn't have to go very far Taylor speaks pretty openly about his experience having a loved one. I've had my own experience with loved ones. Taylor's fortunately, his loved one prevailed in her struggle against opioids. Mine didn't, and I think that there was no shortage of people who, including the parents in our disclaimers, and every episode opens with a parent reading our disclaimer and talking about their child. So there was no shortage. And then we had Barry always, and we had Patrick Radden-Keefe, and we had Alex Gibney, all three of whom have made contributions to making people aware of the perils of OxyContin and opioid addiction. And but the saddest thing is that it's touched so many people, and it's also the reason why it was so important that we do this and tell this story and make sure it reaches as many people as possible. And the one of a number of great things about Netflix is their audience is enormous, and if we can get to 10% of them, that's almost 30 million people who can see this story and say, wow, I had no idea that my doctor was doing me a great disservice when he put me on OxyContin and told me not to worry about it. It's not addictive. And if it's not working, just take more.
Yeah, it was awful. Yeah. And then just to shift for a moment, Eric, you're also working on another Netflix project I'm very excited for with Rebel Moon.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about bringing that very original sci-fi epic to life?
Zack Snyder and I made our first movie together many years ago, Dawn of the Dead, which was still one of the highlights of my career, the experience. And we've stayed friends, and we had been talking for a long time about doing, and there was a moment where he was hoping he'd be part of the Star Wars universe, but to do sort of a, Magnificent Seven in space type story. And, the world, unfortunately, has sort of, become more than ever there's always the threat of totalitarianism, and, we who must unite against it. It's more relevant now than it ever was. And Zach had just finished Army of the Dead at Netflix, and I am based at Netflix, and it just sort of made sense that Zach and Debbie and I and Wes would do this together. It's been so fun. I mean, it's a massive movie. I mean, it is. I would sometimes drive onto set, and I would look out in the distance and think, like, could that possibly be part of our show? And it always was. I mean, it's the biggest thing I've ever done, and it's really cool. I'm excited for people to see it. I think you'll love it.
That's so great. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you for making this show.
Thank you.
So fantastic. And I'm very glad that I learned more about this, and I'm very glad that everyone's going to learn more about this.
Well,
so thank you.
Thank you. That's the hope. Thanks a lot.